Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome back to the final episode of our Yuan Shao Let's Talk Lore series, titled The Road to Guandu. Now last time, we ended the episode as the young emperor made his escape from Chang'an. Pursued by Li Jue and Guo Si, the young emperor sent envoys to all the regional warlords along the way to ask for aid. And at this time, Yuan Shao had just cornered Gongsun Zan in Yijing, and if you disregard the bandit threats from the Black Mountains, the north was essentially won. So when the imperial envoy arrived in Ye, Yuan Shao's advisor, Ju Shuo, pleaded with Yuan Shao that now is the perfect time to secure the emperor in order to set up a new capital in their base of Ye, where they can then utilize imperial edicts to pursue their own political agendas. Yet not all of Yuan Shao's advisors agreed with Ju Shuo's viewpoint. Guo Tu, for example, argued that the Han dynasty is ready on its last leg. Trying to save it now is a futile exercise, especially with the many regional warlords that are across the land. If we bring in the emperor to our court, then our decision-making process will be hampered. Everything we do must be reported to the emperor, and the emperor disagrees with us, then we will end up looking like the bad guys and become the next Dongzhuo, as other regional warlords can unite against us. And as we all know, after weighing both sides of the argument, Yuan Shao decided against seizing the emperor, as his longtime childhood friend and ally, Cao Cao, would come to the opposite conclusion and seize the young emperor for himself. So in August of 196, Cao Cao, using the excuse that the former capital city of Luoyang was still in disrepair, forcefully moved the emperor and the entire imperial court to his base in Xuchang, as Xuchang became the new capital of the dwindling Han Empire. And so began Cao Cao's reign as the de facto regent for the Han. Now at first, Yuan Shao didn't see Cao Cao as a threat, as Cao Cao has always been the little brother figure in their relationship. And as late as 194, Cao Cao was still teetering on annihilation, as Lu Bu almost stole his base and wiped him out. But by 197, when Cao Cao sent Kong Rong as the imperial envoy to the city of Ye to award Yuan Shao the title of Grand Commandant and the Marquis of Ye, Yuan Shao knew he had made a grave mistake. On the surface, this was a promotion and a form of imperial recognition. But deep down, this was a slap in the face for Yuan Shao on many levels. First and foremost, Kong Rong, being the head of this delegation, was an indirect way to remind Yuan Shao that he had sent his oldest son, Yuan Tan, to take over the Qing province by force, as Yuan Tan was the one to defeat Kong Rong in the Qin province and chase him back to the imperial court in Xuchang. And on another deeper level, Cao Cao was also trying to punish Kong Rong, as Kong Rong had been an outspoken critic of Cao Cao's strong arming of the emperor. Thus, on both levels, having Kong Rong be the person to deliver this bad news to Yuan Shao was going to be a win-win for Cao Cao, as if Yuan Shao accepts this promotion, he would have to bow down to someone he had defeated in Kong Rong, who represent the emperor now. Or if Yuan Shao somehow got the guts to defy the emperor and rebel, then Kong Rong, a critic of Cao Cao and a well-respected scholar and descendant of Confucius, would then die at the hands of Yuan Shao. Now, of course, Yuan Shao didn't rebel at this moment. And many might wonder why I keep calling being named the Grand Commandant and the Marquis of Ye bad news for Yuan Shao. Well, the thing is, at this time, Cao Cao also happened to name himself as the Grand General, and as the Grand General, he was the direct supervisor of the Grand Commandant. So with one verdict, Cao Cao was basically telling Yuan Shao that I'm your boss now, and there is nothing you can do about it. Now, not wanting to openly rebel against the Han, which Cao Cao represented, Yuan Shao swallowed his pride and accepted this promotion. And sensing Yuan Shao's displeasure, his advisor Tianfeng would suggest that they could swing their armies down south to attack Cao Cao in Xuchang to seize the emperor at all cost. But Yuan Shao's mind was already made up, as he did not feel confident enough to outright attack the Han, with Gongsun Zan still alive behind his lines. So in 198, Yuan Shao would personally lead his armies to wipe out Gongsun Zan once and for all. And at this time, Gongsun Zan was still holed up in his strings of fortresses, hoping to outlast Yuan Shao. But seeing that Yuan Shao is personally leading the army this time, Gongsun Zan knew he needed more help. So he sent his son, Gongsun Xu, to ride to the Black Mountains to ask Zhang Yan for help. But before help would come, Yuan Shao's men would start besieging the outer fortresses using ladders and tunnels as they started to fall one by one. Fortunately, not long after, words arrived that Gongsun Xu was now on his way back with over 100,000 reinforcements led by Zhang Yan. Hearing this great news, Gongsun Zan wrote a letter instructing his son to use a fire beacon as a signal for his arrival, so that he can ride out to hit Yuan Shao from both sides. Unfortunately, this letter never made it to Gongsun Xu, as the messenger was captured by Yuan Shao. So using this information to his own advantage, Yuan Shao would light a fire beacon and draw Gongsun Zan's forces out of his fortresses. So when Gongsun Zan saw this fire beacon, he rallied his remaining men and charged out of their fortress, only to find themselves in an ambush. Fighting their way out, Gongsun Zan and a few of his men managed to make their way back to the fortresses, while most of his officers, including Tian Kai and Guan Jing, would perish in the fighting. Yet without enough manpower to defend the remaining fortresses, Yuan Shao's men eventually was able to tunnel beneath Gongsun Zan's main fortress, as they decided to set a fire right beneath the fortress to smoke Gongsun Zan out. And sensing that the end was near, Gongsun Zan would go on to slaughter his wife, his sisters, and his concubines to spare them the fate of humiliation that awaited them, as he lit himself on fire in a suicide attempt. However, before the flame could burn away his body, Yuan Shao's men broke through the gates and rushed towards him as they beheaded him and presented his head to Yuan Shao, who promptly delivered it to the imperial court, seeking a reward for putting down Gongsun Zan's rebellion. Now, with the four northern provinces of Bin, You, Ji, and Qing under his command, Yuan Shao started to divide his land up to his family. Now, historically, Yuan Shao had three sons. The oldest, Yuan Tan, was not favored by Yuan Shao by this time, as Yuan Shao was enamored by his second wife, Lady Liu, who had given birth to his youngest son, Yuan Shang. So in an effort to marginalize Yuan Tan, who by tradition and custom should be the one inheriting Yuan Shao's titles and land by being the oldest, Yuan Shao declared that he wants to use a merit-based system for inheritance. So he divvied up his land to his sons equally so that they may administer it in order to test their abilities before Yuan Shao was willing to set his will to see who will inherit it all. Thus, Yuan Tan, from a very young age, was sent away to the Qing province, as the Qing province at this time was the one that Yuan Shao had the least control over, as Tian Kai, who was still serving under Gongsun Zan, still held much of the northern parts of the province, and Kong Rong held most of the land in the southern part of the province. So when Yuan Tan would arrive in the Qing province, he had just the commandery of Pingyuan. Yet from here, he would launch military campaigns up and down, first by taking down Tian Kai in the north in Bohai, before marching south across the Yellow River to chase Kong Rong out of Le'an, Beihai, and Donglai, as he brought the entire Qing province under Yuan Shao's control. On the other hand, the second son, Yuan Xi, was given control of the You province in the north, which did not fully come under Yuan Shao's control until after Gongsun Zan's death. And the Bin province, which is where the Black Mountain bandits were located, was given over to Yuan Shao's nephew, Gao Gan, who, despite not being able to wipe out the Black Mountain bandit threats, was at least able to provide 7 good years of stable rule in the Bin province, as he turned this frontier province into a breadbasket for Yuan Shao's forces. Lastly, Yuan Shao decided to keep his youngest son close to home in the province of Ji, where the city of Ye was located, which basically meant Yuan Shang stayed at home next to his father at all times. Now, this clearly was an unfair arrangement, and it also led to the fracturing of Yuan Shao's own advisors and court, as many of them decided to take different sides in this inheritance battle, with some supporting the eldest and the traditional way, and some supporting the youngest, who clearly had the favor of Yuan Shao. And this would end up creating a huge problem in terms of divergence in future decision making in the Battle of Guandu that is set to come. Now, speaking of Guandu, with the north secured, Yuan Shao now set his eyes on his one-time friend and ally Cao Cao. And in the years leading up to 199, when the early stages of Guandu would be set in motion, Yuan Shao started to show signs of defiance against the Han court held by Cao Cao. First, the annual tribute from the north steadily declined. Then in early 199, when Yuan Shu was on his deathbed, he would write a letter to his brother Yuan Shao, pleading for aid, as he offered to pass on his Emperor of Zhong title to him. Now, of course, Yuan Shao didn't care much for Yuan Shu's emperor title, but the idea of declaring himself as an emperor did start to take root, as he also ended up ordering his men to start looking for any potential prophecies in his lineage that would hint or suggest that his clan would one day supplant the Han, in a very similar fashion to what Yuan Shu did right before declaring his own calendar titles. Yet, much like how Yuan Shu's attempt failed to garner support from even his own men, Yuan Shao also sensed a lack of support from his own court, so he ended up pushing back the idea for the time being, as he actually executed the very men he sent to look for those prophecies in a statement saying that he did not want to rebel. But by September of 199, he did shift his focus back on military campaign against Cao Cao, as in that year, there was a bountiful harvest, and now well-stocked and well-rested, Yuan Shao's army was ready to march south and begin this pivotal campaign that will go down in history as the Battle of Guandu. And with this, we're going to be ending our lore series here, as we'll come back next week with a brand new Let's Talk Lore series, focusing entirely on the Battle of Guandu, where we will be looking at the battle from both Cao Cao and Yuan Shao's perspectives. So hopefully you all enjoy this series, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!